You know, the way the child's life is improved and made better is by the villagers and not Africa Bridge or some Americans or educated Tanzanians from Dar es Salaam or wherever. Thanks, Rebecca. So the critical components of, you know, what we do, our core program is, first of all, what's called a Most Vulnerable Children Committee. And these are volunteers in the community, and there are certain criteria, like they need to be able to read or write, read and write. And we train these volunteers, and it's made up of half men, half women. Every committee has at least 2 vulnerable children on the committee. And they are trained so that they can provide the psychosocial needs of the children. They're trained so that they can identify the children, create a care plan, so they create a 3-year care plan for the child. They do what's called a transit walk. So one of the first things they do after they've learned how to run a committee, be on a committee, identify kids, they do a transit walk. They walk through the whole village and they just draw every house on a map, who's in that house, how many children, which children are vulnerable or not vulnerable. And so, you know, it's a detailed census that they put together. So, you know, we know then exactly how many kids are in the villages, how many adults, what their status is, whether they're vulnerable or not, and then each vulnerable child gets a 3-year care plan. In the second year, we teach them how to provide legal support. And this is really critical because an orphan child, in Tanzania, you know, here, when you're born, you get a birth certificate, right? There's no argument. Everybody's got a birth certificate. All right, well, in Tanzania, you only get a birth certificate if you need one. And you only get it when you need it. So circumstances when you need a birth certificate, go to secondary school and register for examinations. You need a birth certificate to open a bank account. Not many people do that. Well, now they do. But so, you know, most villages don't have birth certificates. But the problem is, if you don't have a birth certificate, you don't exist. And therefore, you have no rights to property or possessions. So, you know, someone can come and claim an orphan's whatever they might have. So these most vulnerable children committees, they're trained as paralegals, and they get all the orphan kids a birth certificate, which is a really important thing. The other thing they do in their sort of legal side is we teach them about women's rights and children's rights, and they lead conversations in the community underneath that tree, you know, on women's rights. And they have these incredible meetings talking about, you know, the relationship between a husband and a wife, and you know, how do you have that relationship, and, you know, is a stick a good way of having a relationship? And it's just incredible, you know, and this is all the villagers themselves. And children's rights as well. When we get a child in school, they visit the child every month in school to make sure the child's doing okay at school. You know, they do home visits. They, if a family is really desperate, they provide basic food needs if they need help.